Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. So today we're unpacking a pretty wild concept. What actually happens when absolute unshakable faith collides head-on with the messy, unpredictable reality of human intervention? It's a fascinating dynamic, honestly, and it shows up in the most unexpected places. Today, we're going to explore this through a couple of brilliant literary examples.
All right, let's dive right into this. Think about it. What happens when you ask the universe for help, but humans answer instead? I mean, it kind of sounds like the setup to a joke, right? But it's actually a super profound look into human psychology, our expectations, and frankly, our gratitude. We're going to examine this bizarre paradox through the lens of two totally different, yet surprisingly connected stories from our source material.
Section 1. A Letter to God.
Okay, so we begin with this incredibly hardworking farmer named Lincho. He is just desperately waiting for rain for his corn. If you followed the timeline we laid out here, the day starts off super hopeful. By supper time, the rain actually begins. It completely looks like salvation. But then, within just one single hour, this violent wind kicks up and a devastating hailstorm hits. The text describes the aftermath of his field as being covered in snow, literally looking like a thick layer of white salt. Not one single leaf remains. It's totally wiped out. So by the next day, a completely ruined Lencho sits down to write a literal letter directly to God.
Now, facing this absolute devastation from nature and, staring down literal starvation, Lencho doesn't just give in to despair. Nope. Believing with all his heart that God sees absolutely everything, he writes this letter. And he asks for a highly specific amount of financial help, exactly 100 pesos, just so he can sow his field again and, basically survive until the next harvest rolls around.
Section 2. The Ultimate Irony.
So, picture this. The letter makes its way down to the local post office. The postmaster sees this envelope addressed simply to God, and naturally he just breaks out laughing. I mean, who wouldn't? But then he actually gets pretty serious. He's profoundly moved by Lencho's unwavering faith, and he decides to step in and essentially play the role of the universe. But, as you can see here, human effort definitely has its limits. Lencho asked for 100 pesos. The postmaster and his employees actually dig into their own pockets, contributing parts of their own hard-earned salaries in an act of pure charity. But they fall short. They only manage to scrape together 70 pesos. Still, they put the cash in an envelope, sign it God, and just wait for the magic to happen.
Now this is the absolutely crucial point. How does Lencho react? Well, he isn't surprised in the slightest to get a letter from God with cash inside. His confidence is just that absolute. But when he counts the money and sees only 70 pesos, oh, he is furious. He completely believes God couldn't possibly make a math mistake, right? So what is his logical conclusion? He decides that the post office employees, yes, the very people who just sacrificed their own wages to save his family from starvation, are actually a bunch of crooks who pocketed the missing 30 pesos. Talk about a plot twist.
Section 3. Analyzing the conflict.
To really grasp why this narrative lands so perfectly, we've got to look at the two distinct conflicts happening at the exact same time here. On one side, we have human versus nature. This is that physical, external devastation, the violent hailstorm just completely wiping out Lencho's livelihood. But the true gut punch of the story? That's the human versus human conflict. We're looking at the psychological barrier of a guy who has this immense, unbreakable faith in the divine, but literally zero trust in his fellow human beings. It's incredibly telling.
You'll notice the language of the text heavily emphasizes the sheer terror of the natural world. They use these massive words like cyclone, gale, typhoon, tornado, hurricane, and whirlwind. It really highlights the immense, almost overwhelming scale of the crisis, which honestly makes his desperate leap of faith completely understandable.
Section 4. The Power of Metaphor. Now, the author, Fuentes, builds this incredibly vivid, tactile world by taking the qualities of one object and transferring them directly onto another. Notice how survival and wealth are totally intertwined in Lencho's mind here. Like, he doesn't just see raindrops, he compares them to new coins because for a farmer, they literally represent future income and a good harvest. The devastating hailstones become frozen pearls. The destroyed fields are compared to the aftermath of a plague of locusts. And even Lencho himself. He's described as an ox of a man, which perfectly highlights his raw physical labor in the fields. It just beautifully frames his entire world around economics, nature, and, sheer survival.
So this duality of human intervention and natural instinct actually builds a perfect bridge to our next story. We're going to pivot now from agricultural survival to a very, very different kind of problem. But do me a favor and keep this thematic idea right at the front of your mind as we move forward.
Section 5. A Triumph of Surgery.
All right, in this brief but genuinely funny story by veterinarian James Herriot, we get to see how wealth and comfort can actually create a life-threatening crisis. Meet Tricky the dog. Now, Tricky isn't starving. In fact, he has the exact opposite problem of our guy Lencho. Tricky's extraordinarily wealthy owner, Mrs. Pumphrey, loves him so much that she is, for all intents and purposes, smothering him. Through excessive pampering, multiple unhealthy treats a day, and absolutely zero physical activity, well, Tricky has become severely overweight, completely lazy, and just terribly unhealthy. It's a classic case where love, without any discipline, becomes a truly destructive force.
Enter Mr. Herriot, the vet. He knows exactly what's wrong the second he sees him, and he takes immediate action. Step 1, he completely removes Tricky from this toxic environment by taking him to his own clinic. Step 2 is a strict regimen, which honestly just means he restricts the dog's food and finally lets him run around. And step 3, that's just natural recovery. Spoiler alert, there is no actual surgery involved. He literally just forces the dog to act like a normal dog. And wouldn't you know it, within days, Tricky is running around playing and even fighting for leftover food with the rest of the pack.
But here is where the wonderful comedic levity of the story really kicks in. While Tricky is recovering perfectly well on a normal, restricted dog food diet, a frantic Mrs. Pumphrey starts sending these insane luxury care packages for the dog. I'm talking fresh eggs and literal bottles of wine to, build his strength. So what does Mr. Herriot do? He and his veterinary staff happily intercept these packages. They're cooking up the eggs for their own breakfast and drinking the wine themselves, all while Tricky gets healthy the good old-fashioned natural way.
Section 6. Flawed Human Nature.
Bringing both of these stories together reveals a really fascinating truth about our perception of reality. Just notice this awesome thematic juxtaposition here. On the one hand, you've got Lencho's problem, absolute starvation, grinding poverty, and the uncontrollable wrath of nature. Then, on the other hand, you've got Mrs. Pumphrey's problem, massive overindulgence, immense wealth, and this smothering over-the-top love. They are complete opposites. And yet, both of these extremes lead to a severe crisis that the individuals themselves are just completely blind to.
And notice how in both narratives, practical, everyday professionals have to step in to save the day. The postmaster and the vet manage these huge crises caused by forces that the main characters just cannot control, whether that force is a freak hailstorm or just their own flawed human instincts. These professionals act as unseen saviors. They step up, they fix the problem, but they are completely misunderstood by the very people they help. I mean, Lencho literally thinks his saviors are crooks, and Mrs. Pumphrey thinks a basic diet was some miraculous, complex triumph of surgery.
Which brings us to our final takeaway for today. The source material shows us that faith, whether it's in the divine or even just in our own misguided love for a pet, can indeed move mountains. But it leaves us with this really profound question. When everyday humanity steps in to actually do the heavy lifting and help us out, will we even recognize it? Or will our own rigid expectations completely blind us to the miracles sitting right in front of our faces? It's definitely something to think about the next time things just miraculously work out for you. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep questioning the reality right in front of you. Catch you next time.